what you have then is from Cranbrook on, I think there's actually a fair amount from the Marines, notes that I do, for what that's worth. And some of it interesting, because if we can find all my letters from the Mediterranean during the Suez Crisis, they're really quite interesting historically. I know at least one of them, and I'm looking for the rest. You'll find them. But then from the Marines, I go to the Society of Fellows, but then, and my work on ambiguity. So that's stuff that still lives, actually. We've got a lot of documentation of how I came to a recognition about the nature of uncertainty that is still quite a live issue. Then, a lot of documentation from Rand. My notes then and and other people's documents that were not classified on the whole. Stuff here unclassified from Rand. Notes in the South Vietnamese peasant of the Mekong Delta from an anthropologist who I knew quite well in Vietnam. And of course, anthropology has always pretty well served empire.
Yep. To
explain to the imperial power how to set one group against another and what their vulnerabilities and so forth. And that was true there as well. Then my work as a consultant in the Pentagon from 59-60 on nuclear weapons, command and control, crises, and a lot of material on crises, much of which, a lot of my notes and analyses of the crises, but also a lot that I copied for these studies, probably most of which has come out since, but I really don't know how much. As I mentioned to you, I had, for example, the Khrushchev-Kennedy letters. Well, it was a long time during the crisis, long time before those were declassified, and I think they have been now. But a lot of my interviews, of which I just told you a couple, Nitsa and Yarmolinsky. Then there's everything leading up to the Pentagon Papers. You came across a file the other day of my notes from 1969. Well, actually, that was a very critical period because on the one hand, I just finished reading all the Pentagon Papers, but on the other hand, the point of putting them out at that time was to encourage Congress to have a resolution cutting off the funds for Vietnam. And Senator Goodell, who later worked on my trial as a lawyer, having lost his seat, he was proposing getting out of Vietnam within 1 year and cutting off the funds, which is what we at RAND, 6 of us, were proposing. So, my files, my notes on that all deal with that period. And then, more or less, in that period of October 1st, I start copying the Pentagon Papers with the intent, actually, of putting them out in connection with the moratorium going on the October 15th and November 15th. And I was involved in all of those. So then there's my discussion of getting the papers out. That's another year and a half. And then I'm out of the system. So from 70, I leave in 70. From then on, I have no further access, but I have taken everything in my top secret safe. So that's all, well, a lot of that was lost, I say, unfortunately. It's buried separately. The nuclear stuff was lost. But some of it remained, and the Vietnam stuff I did not segregate. That has remained. So a lot of documents from that period. So then there's 5 years left of the war where I was very active in the anti-war movement. So you have a great file on that, which doesn't exist for any other official that I know of, in the same archive. That leaves then the next 50 years, basically now, of anti-nuclear resistance. So what makes this archive unusual, because my experience was unusual, is this, that it has not only the official notes, memoirs, that people's memoirs do have, but it's a memoir of my joining the resistance, nonviolent resistance movement. And so I don't know of anyone of a deputy assistant secretary level or higher assistant who actually joined the public movement. resistance.